Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the closing session of ITF 2019. My name is Ali Aslan, and like last year, I have the great honor of being the moderator of the closing plenary. I can tell you for the past couple of days, past 3 days, we have taken in a lot of information, good contacts were made, great interactions here. So now we're coming to an end. We're bringing the ITF 2019 to a fruitful ending. Connecting places and people, which policies for better integration of cities and urban regions. That's what the final session will focus on. We have a wide variety of wonderful, great speakers here today. Kicking off the session, it's my great delight and a great honor because it's his very, very first international public speech as the new CEO of the Michelin Group. The Michelin Group, he joined in 1997 and obviously took on many, many roles within the company. Now, just very, very recently, he has been appointed as the new CEO of the Michelin Group, and we're delighted to have him here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Florent Menegaux.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We at Michelin are convinced that mobility is a key driver of humanity's progress. Therefore, we believe we need more mobility with less impact. Another evidence, we need sustainable measures, sustainable solution, which means efficient, green, inclusive, and providing access. To better connect people, at the end, transport is there to connect people. To connect more people, to better connect more people, more goods, we need a shared vision with a shared governance. We need to work in ecosystems, and we need consistent policies. Let me come back on these 3 items. Shared vision. It is compulsory that we do not oppose private and public, but we design together a shared vision and work on a shared governance. That's the only way we can move from conversation to action. Working in ecosystems. What is at stake? Designing and operating better transport systems is a very complex matter. No one on its own can succeed alone. Therefore, it has to be a concerted effort between public and private sector. At last, we call for consistent policies. Corporations invest over many, many years. It takes decades to bring to market innovations. It takes decades to provide with all the investment required to meet the needs. Therefore, we need consistent policies in time and in location. We need to have consistent policies between cities, regions, countries, and if possible, across countries. Because when, like Michelin, you operate in a worldwide business, it becomes extremely difficult to provide consistent solutions if you have inconsistent framework around the world. So let us have constructive discussion about these issues and debates leading to act, because that will be my conclusion. Corporations are there to bring ideas into results. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Florent Menegaux, the new CEO of Michelin, and congratulations, of course, on your appointment. Many points, many inputs that you have provided us with in your short remarks. Indeed, the questions that we are picking on in this session. What are the ingredients for sustainable, cost-effective solution to improving connectivity in cities and urban regions? Many points that will be picked up now by my next speakers. It's my great pleasure to welcome on stage the Minister of Transport and Telecommunications of Chile, Minister Gloria Hood-Hesse, and the Chairman of the new Metropolitan Transport Commission of Korea, Ki-Chu Choi. Please welcome. Minister, good to see you again. It's great to see you last year. Great to see you again. Now, we're talking about how to deliver effective user-focused connectivity in this session. Of course, something that your country is very diligent in applying. Tell us, Minister, what is Chile doing in this regard?
We are focusing strongly on the development or strengthening of public transport, because we recognize the necessity, the need of compacting trips, so we can reserve the public space for walk or for enjoying the cities. To do that and to take people out of cars, we have to improve public transport. And we are making a big improvement. We had the opportunity of a previous set of contracts coming to their end, and we are changing completely the model, the business model, and also the quality of the system. So new buses are all completely new, with air conditioning, with USB ports, with Wi-Fi. So we are changing the quality of the vehicles, but also the business model and also the competitive model, so we can manage the system based on quality indexes. We think that if we are successful with the process that is now ongoing, we will probably see a major change in the city. We still have to change about 5,000 buses. We now have about 700 already changed and updated, but we still have a big challenge. We think that connectivity is a major need of modern society. People is moving more, is traveling more. Older generations are also more active, more time. So we need to enjoy the city and not just travel. And to enjoy the city, we need a very good quality transport system.
So making the transition,
integrated.
indeed.
It's integrated with underground and also with urban trains. Sure. And with some, we are still trying to integrate with other things like bikes rented. So if we can cover all the range of options, then we will resolve the trips based on shared modes. That's the target. So
very ambitious undertakings, necessary undertakings in order to make people leave their car and
yes.
onto public transportation.
And reserve the space, as I said, to enjoy the city. So the public space should be reserved for persons.
Ki-Chu Choi, we just heard about the very ambitious undertakings on the part of Chile. As Korea, of course, you're not only holding the presidency of the ITF 2019, but you yourself have quite ambitious plans.
Yes. Well, in Korea, I don't know, some of you visited Korea already. In terms of public transportation service level, I think it's quite okay. But talking about connectivity, like we are discussing in this forum, I think we still leave some to be desired. In a sense, people have to, change it and then transfer and then change vehicles and all that. So connectivity matters still in Korea. So over the Seoul capital region, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority existed 15 years as a merger of Seoul city government and the Gyeonggi province government and the Incheon city government. But I don't think it failed completely, but due to lack of some fund and due to some coordination efforts, anyway, it dissolved, and the MTC, the current Metropolitan Transport Commission, initiated last March as a priming water for facilitating the coordination and integration and to further investing and those kind of transportation, public transportation area. So I would like to say 5 keywords. First one, to combat congestion efficiency, and the other one is to combat accident safety and environmental pollution, and I think cost is also important, fourth. And fifth is social inclusiveness that our government is trying to achieve. So what MTC is doing is, in regard to cost and efficiency, especially for public transportation, in regard to highway and the rail together, we are focusing on those 2 areas at the moment.
So efficiency, effectiveness, and inclusiveness are all targets that Korea aims to fulfill and is very well on the road to do so. Minister.
I would like to add something that is important, I think, given the dynamics of cities. In our new business model, we are proposing shorter contracts and smaller units, so we can react quicker to changes in the city. With longer contracts and not flexible, with little flexibility to adapt to changes in the city, the cost is paid by users, finally, because the solutions take very long to implement. So we are going for a very modular solution and something very quick to adapt and react to what the city needs.
And I understand that through the relaunch of your bus concession in Santiago and beyond, you're not just only trying to deliver good service, but even aiming to be the best, perhaps even in the region. You're trying to be a role model at the end of the day for the rest of the continent.
That's a consequence. It was not the initial objective, but now we are leading because we have in operation 200 electric buses in the system, and that is setting us as leaders in the region and in many other cities in the world. It has been very successful, and as far as we can develop something that is useful for the region, we are going to be very happy. So if we can promote and confirm that public transport can be a good solution in Latin America, then we will save a good advantage. The share of public transport in Latin America is still very high, so we have to protect that. It's an asset at that time, at that present times. So we have to work to keep those users traveling, and we are at risk because with higher income, the risk of using cars is increasing.
And Kicho Choi, indeed, if we talk about buses, the challenge there for Korea is right there as well.
Well, letting alone the city buses, what we are taking care of is metro intercity type of buses. So we have about 3,000 kind of, not it's intercity fully, it's a metropolitan covering the intercity, satellite cities of Seoul. So we have 3,000, and we have 2 types. One is blue type and the other is red type, and we have about 400 or 500, and the other is 2,500. The problem is the ministry, for Seoul city viewpoint, they don't want to they don't want the other buses of, for example, Suwon City or Incheon City to penetrate into the center of the CBD because it contributes to, some kind of congestion inside of Seoul. So the ministry, about 8 years ago, they directly initiated the blue bus, which can penetrate into the center of the city. Even though it has some problem in terms of pricing, it achieved a partial success. So what I am trying to do is to include the other 2,500 red buses in a similar structure so that the connectivity can be improved. Okay, but one thing to confess here is the red bus, the bus route, service route is, right now, it is considered as a property asset of the private sector. In Korea, we mobilize the private sector's capital in terms of driver and vehicles. So I think that kind of issue we have to solve to fully integrated bus services over the Seoul area. And I didn't talk about the rail service, but we have also good rail service as well.
And we still have time to squeeze that in just a moment. But Minister Hesse, if I look around the discussions throughout the ITF 2019, the demand for better policies in order for better integration of cities and urban regions is prevalent, is very consistent throughout all sessions. Now, clearly, your government has understood it. But if you look across the pond, do you think that this priority, this necessity is being properly and sufficiently understood and appreciated by policymakers worldwide?
I think it is.
With the microphone.
Sorry, I think it is. It is not very clear how to resolve in different places. One thing that I can confirm after this week of meetings is that we share the need and we share the view also. But different countries have different contexts and legal contexts, and sometimes the bureaucracy is very tight and makes it very difficult to make changes. So we have to be creative to take the existing legal pieces and work on that instead of changing first the administrative background, because that takes very long, and changes in the trips and the cities are happening faster than the administrative change. So there is a big challenge, not in transport, but in how we manage the decisions and how we implement projects. We have to resolve and also adapt our regulation to a more flexible standard. I don't think that our regulation will, for example, resolve the problem of new services through apps, the new platforms. We cannot do anything with the existing regulation, so we have to think completely different on how to implement.
Teacher Choi, I think it's understood now that if we look at it, that better accessibility is not just an issue of convenience, but it also contributes greatly to social and economic inclusion. Yes. Give us the case of Korea. What do you see across the board?
Well, I think if you take a look at the Crossrail case in Elizabeth Line in the London area, the prime motto of advocation is competitiveness of economic growth. I agree. So in over Seoul metro area, metropolitan area, of course we are dealing with Busan area and the rest of the metropolitan area. In Seoul metropolitan area, what we are right now doing is similar version of speedy train called GTX, Great Train Express. I don't know if you remember, KTX is Korea Train Express, is a kind of DJV or Iche type of services here. So within 5 years, I think we can implement such kind of speedy train, the commercial speed of which would amount to 100 kilometers per hour. The maximum is 160. So I think that kind of speed is also very important, as evidenced in our Metro number 9 and other, M-bus type, speedy bus and those, which dovetailed very well to Korean people's characteristics. So that's one thing. And what I would like to avoid in terms of rail, while expediting the economic growth, is to avoid some kind of zigzag type of the rail investment. So so I'm pinpointing the speed is also very important aspects of the economic growth of transportation.
Mr. Menego, in his opening remarks, stressed the need for a shared vision. So it's not just an issue of government. Of course, everybody, all sectors of societies have to chip in. Give us the case in Chile. How do all the various forms of social societies, groups, and government are working together?
Yeah, I agree completely with the shared vision, and it is important to share the vision across countries, not just in one country. I will give an example. In less developed countries as ours, the lower income population is the most exposed to the impact of climate change. So we have to support that people. And on top of that, we have to achieve the goals of environmental improvement. So if we do not work in a very wide view of different countries, that is not going to be resolved, because we have to have a complete view of the planet. It's the planet that has the problem of climate change. There is no way that we can resolve the impact of climate change in our country only with definitions that we can take on our side, because we are a small country. Our contribution to climate damage is very little, but the impact is very high. So we have to find a balance, and the shared view, and especially the shared action, is very important. I think COP25, and I have to repeat my invitation to all of you to attend to COP25 in Santiago de Chile in December. This should be an issue. How to work together to avoid that the objective that we all share do not become another reason for differences between countries. We cannot generate new gaps between countries based on an objective that we all share.
Climate change, certainly an issue that is not solely confined to a country or continent, but it all affects us, and only a shared vision in this particular regard will move us forward. Also, in regards to the shared vision, Kichu Choi.
Yeah, I think first of all, to combat issue of climate change and other negative externalities from the transportation, I would like to say the public transportation modal share increase still the most important factors. But it seems last summer I visited the LA Metro, and in spite of huge investment, the modal share of public transportation is declining. In Korea, it's kind of stagnant. In Europe, for IDFM, in Frank's case, they invest a lot, and then their modal share is increasing a little bit. So in this sense, I don't know why, but it seems to me there should be three factors. One is the gas price. Gas price is going down in some states. And the other is gentrification. People don't need to commute, okay? The same thing in Korea. And the third one, I would say, it's a Uber type of transportation network company. Public transportation users just shift to Uber or Lyft or whatever. So those kind of three factors, having those in mind, I think ITF probably in the next year or so, I think we really have to think twice. What amount of public transportation and in what direction should be explored? It would be a good challenge for all of us, including the climate change.
Already looking ahead to ITF 2020, the pointers for the next session. LA, you mentioned, we'll get to that during our next session. We have the general manager of the LA Department of Transportation here. Now, as you will remember, ladies and gentlemen, the last session is always a bit more interactive. So I invite you, if you have questions, any inputs, something that you have heard up until now, now's your chance to get in. We have microphones plastered all across the room. Just indicate that you want to jump in the remaining 5 minutes, and we'll bring in your inputs. Minister Hesse, you've already said that the collaboration is key. The ITF obviously being the perfect playground for that, bringing all these nations together once a year here in Leipzig. Where do you want to see the debate for better integration of cities and urban regions looking ahead? What are the keys, what are the factors and elements that you would like to be addressed still?
I think, sorry, I think that making available platforms and facilities for people to plan their trips better, digitalization, optimizing the use of infrastructure, but information. I think that here technology has a tremendous role. I think that allowing people to have the trips in their hands will change also and will give them the feeling that trips can be more efficient, that they can get connections in different ways, that they have many options, and they have the freedom to choose between alternatives. So connectivity is not just providing one type of bus or train from one point to another. It's allow people to go wherever they want at using efficient modes and contributing to better cities.
Kichu Choi?
Yeah, I think even though there are some strategies for, I think behavior change is very important. But instead of change your behavior, I think it's time for us to modify the service type and then provide to the preferences of ordinary people. That's one thing. And I think in Korea, especially the land use and transportation always matters, and it's time to think at the same time and providing housing and transportation at the same time so that people don't need to suffer anymore.
Right.
One comment is that as the resources were enough and available for everyone without any conflict, then it was very easy to manage and to give solutions. Now we have limited resources. So I think also that the government has to be more active in defining the priorities. So I am completely a fan of free market, but in this case, I think that the market will not resolve all the needs and the priorities and the focus of the public policy. So I'm now more inclined to strengthen the role of governments in making the definitions, using, of course, private operators offering for bids, but the way that things will organize in cities and how we will use or prioritize the transport modes, I think has to be in the hands of the government.
Looking into the audience one more time as this first portion here is winding down. Sometimes the questions are coming later. People like to absorb the information first. No worries, this session will go on for a bit longer. So before we wind down, let me just get a take from both of you as the ITF 2019 is winding down, Minister Hesse. What are your key takeaways? What do you take with you?
Yesterday I was asked the same thing no, by another journalist. It was funny.
Well, then you know the answer now. So this is...
No, it's better because I thought yesterday night that I had to answer other things.
See, there you go. There
you
you
have
go.
the privilege. Well, first, I have very positive things, is to confirm that our concerns are very consistent with concerns in other countries. When you are in a developing country, you think that developed countries have already everything resolved or better resolved, and sometimes it's not the case. And it's a kind of comfort to see that we are facing the same set of problems. We are all facing, for example, how to regulate Uber, how to regulate scooters, many things that are happening in all the cities of the world at the same time. So I think it's very positive to see that we are working together in the same aspect. I also carry the concern that I mentioned about how to approach climate change and the solutions and the objectives. at a very international shared vision and commitment, because there are differences and there are countries where we still have the need of connecting people to the city. So it's very difficult to achieve the same goals than developed countries. I think that's a key issue to discuss. And I also carry the feeling that ITF has consolidated as a very strong forum to discuss all the aspects of interest for the transport sector. Is the Davos of transport.
A very, very strong forum indeed, a forum that Korea held the presidency for in this particular year, so a special ITF for you, Choi, your takeaways from 2019.
Well, key takeaway is the fact that I got to know you.
Well, it was well worth it. This is, thank you, I feel honored.
And second, MTC advocation, definitely. It's also the very nice aspect. But what I learned here by attending, some roundtables and sessions is the connectivity matters and very important. But at the same time, I think security should be resolved. And then there is a slight difference between safety and security. If there is any intended harm behind, we are addressing that as a security matters. So shared mobility and all that, I think those kind of security issues should be tackled down in the future. And then also, what I learned is coordination spirit as well. Okay, I visited IDFM and then the TFL, but all things considered, I think coordination spirit is also contributing to making the connectivity 100% secure one.
Of course, please.
Add one comment. Also the feeling that transport used to be a technical matter, and we used to share technical discussions and technical concerns. But it seems to me that transport is becoming more and more a social problem. So ministries of transport are becoming part of the social needs of people. And more if it is with communications with is my case. So I think the approach to problems needs to consider in a broader extent the behavioral aspects and also some things that are not the economic optimal, for example, but the well-being as part of the variables. I think that's other thing that I am carrying.
And regardless of geography or prosperity level, at the end of the day, you say the goals and the challenges that we're facing are pretty similar at the end of the day. The pleasure and honor to getting to know you, of course, has all been mine, Ki-Joo Choi. So having settled that, very much appreciated, Minister Gloria Hutese and Ki-Joo Choi. Thank you so much for your input. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on. Los Angeles has already been mentioned. Delighted to welcome here on stage the General Manager of the LA Department of Transportation, Salida Reynolds, and great pleasure to welcome the President of the World Blind Union, Frederick Schroeder. Please welcome them on stage. Hello, please. Wonderful to have you both here. Thank you so much. Welcome on stage, Mr. Schroeder, as well. Salida Reynolds, you've heard your four speakers, a lot to take in. Los Angeles, of course, has been brought up as an example of how to make connectivity work for...
Was that what he said?
Well, I tell you what...
I think he said something different.
I know, this was my very, very flattering interpretation of what he said. No, but you know the challenges that LA, of course, has at the end of the day of providing access and mobility, especially for deprived communities in LA. How you taken on this challenge?
So the Los Angeles Department of Transportation is huge. 7,500 miles of streets that we manage and operate, 37,000 parking spaces, 5,000 interconnected signals. And LADOT actually also operates our own municipal transit service, which nests inside the metro service that serves the region. And so to determine how to focus our efforts, we really rely heavily on data-informed sort of decision-making. And what we saw when we looked at the data is that a couple of things. First, transportation, sort of traffic crashes, traffic violence are the #1 cause of death for children in Los Angeles County under the age of 14. And when we map out where those crashes and injuries are happening, we see that, first of all, it's mostly people walking who are getting injured and killed. And about half of the streets that are the worst in the city are in low-income neighborhoods of color, which also suffer from high incidences of other negative public health outcomes, childhood diabetes, asthma, et cetera. So we know that if we want to change that trend, we must overinvest in communities that have not received investment over decades and decades. The other thing that we see is that our public transit system and the transportation system in general was really built to serve you if you have a traditional 9-to-5 white-collar job. So you get up in the morning, you kiss your family goodbye, you get on the train, you go downtown. It probably works okay for you. But if you are a woman or you have a low-wage job, our system falls apart. And it doesn't serve you, and it doesn't connect you to access and opportunity and education and all of the reasons why people come to Los Angeles. So if we don't fix and address those two fundamental problems, which both relate to decades of sort of racial and socioeconomic inequity, then we will lose all of the things about the city that we love. And we will not achieve any of our tremendously ambitious goals. Mayor Garcetti architected a Green New Deal for Los Angeles, which has huge sustainability goals and outcomes. As you heard earlier, Los Angeles is engaged in the largest build-out of rail infrastructure in North America right now. And simultaneously, we are the capital for scooters in the United States. We have over 40,000 of them on our streets, over 1 million rides on them just in the last month. But our worry is that if we continue to double down on the way that we've built things up until now, we will only exacerbate that gap between the sort of those who have and those who don't.
So quite a few challenges still ahead for Los Angeles.
I don't know what you mean. It's a super easy job.
Super easy job. That's why you're at it and you're good at it. So we're very happy to have you here, Salida Reynolds. Frederick Schroeder, of course, is the president of the World Blind Union, an organization representing the needs of up to 250 million blind and partially sighted people around the globe. Frederick Schroeder. We're talking about access to public transport throughout the ITF throughout the past 3 days, particularly the challenges for the blind and partially sighted people. Give us a sense of what you're facing.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. Let me begin by saying that if I could express what I hope will come from this morning's session, it would not be so much specific information that I have that I share with you, as much as it would be a change in the way we look at inclusion of blind and partially sighted people and others with disabilities. Specifically, that we replace our conception of inclusion from a benevolence model to an economic benefit model. And what I mean by that, I'll give you a simple example. I have in my pocket an iPhone. Many of you have smartphones as well. I bet there is not one person in this hall who uses the full capacity of that device. You use some of the capacity. You use the parts that matter to you. But I doubt seriously that anyone in this room uses the full capacity of the device. there are features in your phone that are probably used by most of the people who own them. In other words, well, one of the things that I find most problematic is to actually use it as a phone. But most of us, at least from time to time, use our phone to make phone calls and receive phone calls. So that's a feature that most of us use. But there are features in that phone that probably 1%, 1/10 of 1%, maybe 1/100th of 1% of customers use a particular feature. So why do the manufacturers include those features? Because it is more cost efficient to include those features and to thereby broaden the customer base. It is an economic benefit to the manufacturer. And it is a benefit to you, the end user, because as you discover new capacities in that piece of technology, you may find things that are helpful in your individual life. It is a benefit to you, the individual, and a benefit to the manufacturer. So as I was introduced, it was mentioned that the World Blind Union represents the interests of the estimated 253 million blind and partially sighted people around the world. That's a lot of people, 250 million people. One of the things that building inclusive models into our thinking, in this case with new technologies, and I'm going to use as an example autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles. Potentially, self-driving vehicles could expand the customer base by 250 million people. Now that's different than other technology developments in the automotive industry. In other words, when you put in, backup cameras or some new feature into your automobile technology, you're doing it for two reasons: to keep your current customer base and perhaps to try to attract a few customers away from your competitors. But autonomous vehicles have the potential of not just giving you a marketing edge in an incremental sense, but opening your potential marketplace to 250 million new customers. This makes economic sense for the manufacturers. Now, in summary, let me just say that when we think about inclusive technology, inclusive built environments, I want to just very quickly make a distinction between basic accessibility and what I'll call usability. So, autonomous vehicles, I hear that the initial use of autonomous vehicles will be by ride-sharing companies. So accessibility, I need an app that I can operate to call that vehicle, to tell the vehicle where I want to go. I will need accessibility for other things, the heating and cooling system inside the vehicle, maybe the radio inside the vehicle. I don't know if people still use radios, but whatever it is you do to make music come out of the speakers these days. That's accessibility, but usability is equally important. In other words, when that vehicle pulls up in front of a building, I need to know where it is, not just an alert that it's arrived. And you know what? By considering how would a blind person find that vehicle, that will direct the thinking beyond blind people. Imagine leaving a sports event and you as sighted people are looking for your ride share, and you and dozens of others are running around through lanes of traffic looking at the license plate on black Toyota Priuses. If we think about usability, how can we make our systems meet the needs of people, all people? We create economic benefit for governments that purchase the technology, for manufacturers that make the technology. So stop thinking about accessibility and inclusion as an act of charity, as a benevolence, but an economic benefit.
Thank you so much, Frederick Schroeder. Yes, please. for your remarks and highlighting the necessity to take into account 250 million people at the end of the day. But as you said, not just out of a sense of charity, but for economic reasons as well, Salida. Now, here at the ITF, I'm sure you have come across and met a lot of people who are facing the challenges, as your city, for instance, does, namely making connectivity work for everyone. What are some of the encounters that will help you moving forward, going back to LA? What are some of the pointers, best case examples that you take with you?
Well, I think that any time we get to participate in a forum like this, we gain a tremendous amount. And one of the highlights for me was a session yesterday hosted by the Swedish Transportation Ministry about global road safety, and really hearing and understanding from a whole variety of viewpoints, and understanding, that our goals are very similar, but our challenges are wildly different. But when it comes down to tactics and tools, there are things that we have in Los Angeles that can be used in Kazakhstan, right? And there are things that they're learning about street design in Morocco that we can bring to Los Angeles. And really what it all boils down to is this. We have to lead. So in Los Angeles, we're working on something that we call transportation happiness. And happiness is not a word that most people associate with transportation, in Los Angeles in particular. But to the point, we cannot just lead with safety. We cannot just lead with public health. We cannot just lead with economic mobility. We need to lead with something that is more universal, that helps people understand what they will get back if they make trade-offs. Because it's very plain from the earlier session that we as a globe are facing a crisis, and if we want to address the crisis, our way of life must change. And as humans, as you all know, we're just really good at change. We love change. We love it when the Department of Transportation comes into your neighborhood and says, it's time for me to put in this bike lane that you never asked for. And by the way, because it's a built-out city, I have to take away space from something else. So I'm just going to take this travel lane and I'm going to give it to bikes. People just love that, let me tell you. They can't get enough of it. But the fact remains that real change is required, and so we must be able to articulate real benefits that sort of ladder up to big things that we all connect with: happiness, family, joy, love, connection. These are the things that we need to be able to articulate transportation is about. Minister S articulated it very clearly, that it is a field that is dominated by extraordinary technical talent, but the challenges right now are far deeper and more social, and the need for strong communicators and storytellers, and the need for sort of redefining our goals. These are some of the things that were really powerful to me in that session, and something that is very near to my heart, and something that I've worked on probably for the last 20 years. How do we save lives? How do we make sure that being injured or killed is not a natural outcome of the design of our mobility system and getting from A to B? That has to be part of it, but we have to become much more powerful at explaining to people what they will get in return if they are willing to kind of make big changes in the way that we design and deliver our transportation.
Very passionate plea for the necessity for change, even though it might not be the most favorite thing that people will conduct. We're winding down the session, this particular portion of the talk. If you have questions, let me know. But Frederick Schroeder, I want to end with you and ask you about the encounters that you have had here at the ITF. Particularly, what are the encounters? What are some of the messages? What are some of the lessons, perhaps, that you as the president of the World Blind Union can take with you from Leipzig and make your work more sustainable and effective?
Well, I would say the greatest takeaway that I have from the 3 days here is the open spirit that I have consistently encountered with participants. That everyone with whom I have spoken wants our systems to work well for all of our members of our communities. And that's the starting, that is the starting point. So we're very encouraged. The World Blind Union is a resource to you. We want to help make your jobs easier. If we can design in those features that make systems work well for everyone at the front end, it will benefit all of us. So please look to us as a resource, as a partner, and finally, thank you for taking seriously the greatest inclusion of all people in your designs.
Ladies and gentlemen, making connectivity work for everyone. This has been a fascinating, very thoughtful debate here. Much thanks to the General Manager of the LA Department of Transportation, Salida Reynolds, and of course, the President of the World Blind Union, Frederick Schroeder. Thank you so much. Thank you. Just come in. Thank you. Thank you. And moving it along, ladies and gentlemen, now we are, of course, winding down here at the ITF 2019, but we are in Leipzig, and that's why it's my very great pleasure now to welcome on stage both the mayor of this wonderful city of Leipzig, Burkhard Jung, and the Secretary General of the International Association of Public Transport, Mohamed Mezgani, ladies and gentlemen. Great. Welcome to you all. Burkhard Jung, I'm going to start with you. The ITF Leipzig is traditionally the host of this wonderful gathering here of the ITF, a great source of pride for the city. Well, what does it bring to the city? How does it help you as in your plant as the mayor?
First, it's an international marketing, so thank you very much. For the city, it's a great thing to have an international audience, to have a forum for discussion, to have people inside of the city, and I think the issue, the challenge of this forum is very near and very close to the problems and challenges of cities.
And you know, most of us, if not all of us, have throughout the past 3 days used your public transportation,
yes.
Of course, here in Leipzig. And we see that for a relatively small city, there's quite a big, extensive regional metro system that you have put in place here. What has it done for the city and the region in particular?
Yes, we have the backbone of the transport system is our tram system, and we have an S-Bahn system, a new system. I will talk about that because I think I have to explain. Sure. Leipzig is the fastest growing city in Germany. It's very small, if you see it in the international comparison, but in Germany it's growing very, very fast. And though we have growth pains, you see, and in European situation, social infrastructure, housing, schools, kindergartens, and so on. And one point is to develop the urban transport system. How can we do it? How can we change it? And so we opened and on the other side, in the urban region, in the region of Germany, we have a shrinking situation. The city of Leipzig is growing very fast, and in the landscape it's growing. It's a shrinking situation. So we decided to build a new S-Bahn system, and we opened the Leipzig City Tunnel in 2013. And at the end of 2014, we have 25 million passengers on 10 lines, more than before. And what happened in the region? Everywhere where the line is going to the region, to the small cities, to the middle cities, the population is growing too. So we have a good connectivity to the city of Leipzig. It has effects, and it's a good example for to strengthen the regional situation too. So I think that's the right way to do. The railway system is maybe the most important thing to strengthen the relation between urban situation and urban regional situation.
So a big investment in the regional metro system that has paid off for
Absolutely.
the city as
Absolutely.
it is expanding rapidly.
Yes.
Mohamed Mezgani, you of course are the Secretary General of the UITP. We've talked about public transport not just on this platform but throughout in the past 3 days, of course. Now, much has been made of the shared vision and the necessity for governments to recognize the priorities. What has been your experience as SG?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, indeed. We see the evolution of the mobility market. I mean, we are I would say even a revolution of the mobility market. We see that urbanization is increasing. We have more and more cities, and the cities they are bigger and bigger, and it puts the need to develop sustainable transport as a priority in these cities. Of course. These cities, they need mass transit, which is the backbone, and Mr. Mayer, he mentioned this backbone, the tram here is the backbone of the city, because this is the only way to move large volumes of people. But at the same time, we see there is a changing needs, changing expectations of the population. They want more on-demand, more flexible, more demand-responsive transport. And we have to find the way to move from a ready-made transport system to a tailor-made transport system, where public transport is the backbone of this system, by combining all these modes under the same scope, under the same, let's say, redefined public transport system, which is including all the shared and collective modes of transport. And this sharing could be over time, means we use the vehicle one after the other, or over space, that we are all in the same vehicle. And this is the way we should define. And of course, it was discussed many times in this event. And if we do that, that will be the only way to reduce congestion on the road, because we will better optimize the use of the vehicles. And this was mentioned many times. And it's not just, I would say, a technical problem. It's a governance issue. And there, the role and of the political decision makers at national level, and they were gathered here in this event, but also at local level, is very important. So this is really the challenge we have. I would see it more as an opportunity, of course, because it will better serve at the end the needs of the people, but it comes with some challenges, and if we have time, we can talk about the challenges later.
And we will indeed. The challenges should not be hit under the table. But Mayor Jung, again, Leipzig's public transportation system, very vital to the growth of the city. If you look around the region and Germany in general, is Leipzig, could it be a role model? Could it be a leading model for other cities of the same size, perhaps?
I hope so, yes. But indeed, I think it's a good example. To strengthen the tram system, I think that's the most intelligent e-mobility we have. Everybody's talking about e-mobility, huh? But that's e-mobility, tram system. It's a win-win situation between the region and the urban space if we use it and if we work together in this way. By the way, we have a new study for use for hydrogen trains. It's the right word? Hydrogen. We tried to demonstrate it in March this year. We call it an H2 train, and he transported over 150 passengers from Grimma to Leipzig. Grimma is a small city in the near of Leipzig, and it worked very, very well. And I think that's a new way for new transport engines, for new models, for new environmental sustainability. So I think yes, we are in some cases we are a model. Yes.
Mohamed Mezgani, if we look at what public transport can do for the economy and society, Leipzig, of course, being a prime example here. If you look around the globe, what are some of the other best practices?
Yeah, first, thank you to say that public transport can do a lot for the economy and the society, because transport is not an end in itself, but it's the service it brings and the benefits it brings that are important. And this is actually in the vision of UITP. We don't speak about transport. We speak about well-being. We speak about quality of life and economic prosperity of cities. And there are examples. You know, there are studies showing that when you invest €1 in public transport system, you generate €4 in the local economy. In Geneva, for example, when they created one job in the public transport system, it led to creation of 3.3 jobs in the rest of the economy. So if we take other examples, for the same amount of money invested in transport, if you invest this amount of money in building roads, and compared to building transport system, you will create 25% more jobs if you invest the same amount of money in public transport. So the benefits, we can also mention a study made in the USA by APTA, the American Public Transit Association, that cities who have train connection to their airports, they have 11% more, let's say their hotels, they have 11% more activity than hotels in other cities. If you look to the cities that are hosting large events, the top 10 cities that are hosting large events, you will see that they have all a very good and efficient public transport system. It becomes a must, and we have the example here in Leipzig with this event, for example. So this is really important to show the benefits, and these benefits beyond the economy, they are benefit about road space, of course. You need to replace a bus by 30 or 40 vehicles, cars. About safety, metros is 10% safer than cars. Buses four times, sorry, not 10%, 10 times. Buses 4 times, yes. Yeah, buses 4 times. Tramway 6 times. Right. Or if you take into consideration the energy consumption and the impact on climate, so you will see that a bus consumes 3 to 4 times less energy per passenger transported. So it's important to have this in mind because these are the benefits of public transport for the economy, for the society, and for the well-being in cities.
Well-being and sustainability obviously are the key terms. You've already pointed out the importance that you place on green mobility and making it environment friendly. What else do you have planned here in Leipzig where you could lead the motion and the movement in green mobility?
Well, I think you have to do it step by step. I think you know, and nobody needs yellow jackets on streets. So you have to do it like an LA way to make it happy, to make it friendly, to have to tell stories, to tell people the effects, and to motivate to use it. And one key of the green way for transport is bicycle. I think we try to strengthen the bike ways, the routes, the lines, the safety of bicycling. It's a great problem. Yesterday we have a young woman in Leipzig because a lorry was going on the right side.
Tragic.
But you have to balance. You have to pick up the people who have they have to see the chance to use the public transport system. They have to see the chance to use the bikes. We have to make it safety. We have to make the security of the machines better. So that's our way. We want to in 2030 we want to have to change the modal split of public traffic to 35% and of bicycle 25%. That's, I think, step by step, that's the way.
The importance of bicycle, which is why you are, of course, leading the traditional bicycle tour right afterwards.
May I invite you, please come with me to the bike tour. It's legendary.
Legendary. The ITF bicycle tour right afterwards, led by the mayor himself. Which other city could provide that? Now, Mohamed Mezgani, because we're winding down here, if there are any questions, of course, I'm always looking into the audience, but they seem to be captured. It's a captured audience listening very intently. As the SGO of the International Association of Public Transport, much progress has been made. You pointed it out. What are the remaining challenges? Where's room for improvement still?
Yeah, There are challenges, of course, and especially challenges linked to this revolution, I would say, of mobility, to the new behaviors and the new expectations and the new technologies that are, and digitalization that are introduced in transport. I would like to maybe to focus on two of them. The first one is governance. Governance, because we are used to have a governance model with an authority and the transport operators and the contract between an authority and one of more operators. And these were the main actors in the system together with the users, of course, the travelers. But now we have the authorities, and as I said earlier, we have the national and the local authority, but we have these new players, ride-hailing, car sharing, scooter sharing, etc. We have, of course, the operators, and these operators are becoming more and more global. We have now public transport company, they're operating in 20, 30 countries. So they have a different approach. And so it's important that we redefine, or that we better define the powers and role of every of these actors, because these new players, they have a different approach. They are impatient, of course. They cannot have plans on decades, which is not the case in the traditional public transport business. So it's important that we find the right way to distribute the powers between this, but we have to do it having in mind the public service interest. Because, as I said, the benefits of public transport, or the benefits of sustainable mobility, they have to be taken into account with having in mind the public service interest. So we have a governance model which will, let's say, not prevent the entrepreneurship of these new actors, of these new stakeholders, but safeguard the public interest. And this will have an impact on what we call mobility as a service, that was discussed here also, that the mobility as a service platform, they are developed in a way that we serve the expectation of the customer, of course, but we also have in mind the public service dimension, and the algorithm, I would say, that will be developed for that, they have to consider this. And one second challenge, sorry if I take a lot of time, is these changes, technology, automatization, electrification, digitalization in general, they are also implying to have new skills and new talents in the public transport, not only public transport, in the urban mobility. So we need to have the right skills. We need to have, for example, cybersecurity experts. We need them, but we will compete with other sectors to attract them, with the telecom, with the banking sector. So we need to develop a strong employers brand of public transport to attract these people. And this is maybe an opportunity also to offer more jobs for women in public transport. There are only 17% of the jobs in public transport, of the employees in public transport, are women. And so really, we need more women in public transport, and this is also one of our chances to make public transport more attractive for women. Thank you.
So much progress has been made, much more work remains to be done, that's for sure. Before I let you go, both, Mayor Jung, I know you're going to take probably some form of transportation tomorrow to Berlin, where, of course, the local team, Red Bull Leipzig, will play in the cup final against Bayern Munich in Berlin.
Yes, I hope so. This year we will win. We will win against the Bavaria guys.
Well, I tell you what, the opening was done by the German transportation minister, who's from Bavaria, of course. But we'll take it, the cup game.
There's a difference between us.
A small one, quite small. We wish you good luck, nonetheless. Mohamed Mezgani, Burkhard Jung, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good luck for tomorrow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the time, we're almost at the end. We're almost at the end of the ITF 2019. But of course, before we wrap up, it's my great pleasure. This has been, the ITF was held under the Korean presidency this year. Did a marvelous job. It was a wonderful first opening evening that we all had the pleasure to take part. And therefore, it's my great pleasure to welcome on stage, on behalf of the Korean presidency, once again on stage, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ki-Chu Choi.
Thank you again. I'd like to share this message with you. Good morning, everyone. Already good afternoon. I'm Ki-Ju Choi, Chairman of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission under the Department of Transportation in Korea. I'm delivering this message on behalf of our Minister Hyun-Mi Kim. Well, today I'm very glad to have an opportunity to talk about connectivity between places and people. Through an intensive dialogue on this theme, we could discuss a wide range of policies for urban and regional integration, understand diverse cases from different countries, and explore the ways to enhance our policy building capacity. There is an old saying that goes, road open up doors to success, while barriers and fortresses can drive everyone into ruin. In Chinese history, looking back, Qin dynasty, I think it's a great dynasty. In a sense, it united the whole continent of China. But it is widely known that Qin dynasty faded into history shortly after it built Great Wall. While the Roman Empire's road network helped to drive its growth and prosperity, Korea was able to achieve remarkable economic growth in a short period of time with expressway connecting Seoul and Busan and connecting most of the critical regions across the country. And Incheon International Airport as well, serving as a gateway to the world. History proves that isolation has always led to decline, while connection has brought prosperity. In other words, transport connectivity, this year's theme, is highly critical for a better future of any nation. In addition to economic growth, transport connectivity directly affects regional peace and stability as well. In Korea, Korea has consistently worked on inter-Korean connection project to improve our relationship with North Korea, with June 15th Joint Declaration year 2000. We had a great groundbreaking ceremony for railway connection between two countries. 2007, pilot rail operation in North was jointly implemented. And last year, April 27th, and Panmunjom Declaration, we have worked on rail connection again, Donghae Line and Gyeonggi Line. We also worked together for inter-Korean road connection. All of these endeavors could be made thanks to strong mutual trust and confidence that transport connectivity can lead to regional peace and stability. Even though Korean Peninsula is connected to China, Russia, and even Europe by a road, it has been isolated like an island. If two Koreas are connected through transportation network, I strongly believe that it will ultimately lead to peace and inclusive growth of East Asia as well as two Koreas. To this end, Korea will continue to make further efforts on transportation connectivity based on mutual trust with all of relevant countries. ITF is a leading transport platform, give a precious opportunity to share best practices in this field by suggesting better directions for future transport and ceaselessly discussing the studying on this issue. Most of universal accepted transportation rules and regulations, such as limit on blood alcohol level while driving and speed limit and mandatory seatbelt fastening, were originally discussed in ECMT, former body of ITF, and globally introduced and widely adopted, including Korea. Such exemplary cases were possible for all the transportation experts and policymakers, had open and intensive discussion on impending issues and challenges at ITF. Thank you, ITF, once again. I'm closing. With Tunisia membership, ITF has 60 members countries from the globe. and becoming an advanced global transport forum. Moving forward, I sincerely expect ITF being a leading transport consultative body with your active participation and support. Closing, recently, and I learned one German proverb. Having done well and assuming that we achieved a nice end, I would like to finish my talk by saying German proverb, Ende gut, alles gut. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ende gut, alles gut. But I can tell you we're not right there at the end yet, because congratulations to Korea for a very successful presidency of the ITF 2019. Moving from one Korean to the next. And I tell you, Secretary General, last time we ended this, it was your freshman year. And I think we look back at a very successful one. This is your sophomore year now. Very curious what you have to say, ladies and gentlemen. The Secretary General of the ITF, Yang Tae Kim.
And that's good, alles gut. But we are just starting. We are not ending. So we'll see. I'm sorry to have a different voice because some of you might know what happened last night. Dear friends, it is hard to believe that it's already over. Basically, this is the moment that I was waiting for from the beginning. When I was participating in the event, the situation was different. But when I'm organizing, it's totally different. So to the final moment, I was trying to take care of everything in respiring with you and working together with you. But now we are here again as a sophomore graduation student. And 3 days of debate and discussion, exchange and inquiry, networking and knowledge sharing, really useful. But of course today is not the end of the conversation. And that's good, alles gut. But today is not the end of the conversation. We'll continue to think and debate and sometimes argue how we can improve connectivity, how transport can help to better integrate regions, how transport can improve to better serve citizens. As we are heading for Leipzig airport to the train station, as we get into our car or take the tram, walk or cycle home, we should think about how we can make the good ideas and good practices that we have heard happen. Make them happen in our own area of responsibility. Because now we need to move from reflection to action, from ideas to deeds. To do that is our responsibility. In my speech during the opening plenary one, I said that better transport connectivity requires, first of all, connecting ideas and minds. What I have witnessed during these 3 summit days is exactly that. So much mutual sharing of experience, so much curiosity and interesting questions, so much openness and interest in how others deal with the challenges that we face. It shows me that the international cooperation is more than an overused phrase. Here at the summit, we saw it in action, become reality. What are the main takeaways? Everyone will have their own. But let me share with you just a couple of things that I picked up in the debates and conversations over the past 3 days. Firstly, connectivity is a current trend. So we are getting more and more connected every day in different formats, in different situations, physically, socially, digitally, emotionally. And connectivity can contribute to prosperity and peace. And connectivity is a future. It makes this planet a smaller but more enjoyable place. It doesn't mean physical connection is only a connectivity, but also the social dimension is also important. So many people have helped to make this summit such a success, and I wish I could name them all, but we could have to add another half day at least, and we cannot afford that with our tight budget. The biggest thanks go to Korea, our 2019 presidency country, and Minister Hyun-mi Kim, who was so unexpectedly forced to cancel at the last minute, and a team in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport steered the ITF through the past 1 year with skill and dedication. And with the great support of many of Korea's transport agencies, Multi managed what I thought almost impossible: to lay on a presidency that was at least on par with what we have been offered by previous presidencies. I want to thank our sponsors. Without them, this event could not happen at the level that it does. The Free State of Saxony, a regional partner, has again shown great support. Both the Prime Minister, Michael Kretschmer, and Martin Dulich, Saxony's Minister of Economy, Labor and Transport, came and demonstrated how important the summit is to the region. We enormously grateful for Saxony's commitment. Lord Mayor of Jung, my friend, always supported this event. So last year I could not make it for bicycle riding with him. So I made a precious promise. So I will go with him this afternoon. Fortunately, weather cooperates. And DECRA has a long-standing commitment to the summit that we appreciate very much, our gold sponsor. And we equally appreciate the fantastic work DECRA does in the area of road safety, notably with the report on traffic safety for children, which they presented here this year. And two great companies, Bombardier and Toll Collect, supported the event that we have also enjoyed as silver sponsors. Bombardier is under new leadership, and I thank Danny D. Perna, the new president of Bombardier Transportation, for maintaining the company's commitment to the summit. And Toll Collect is an old friend back with us in 2019 as a summit partner after a hiatus of a few years. Thank you so much for your support. And then there is the team of CCL, Congress Center Leipzig. We owe them from the executives Martin Bull-Wagner and Andrei Kaldenov, down to the handlers, cleaners, and servers. Not to forget the pink lady. Where is she? The pink lady, Lydia Zielinski. And Compact team who so expertly choreographed the gala dinner. We had 35 exhibitors and a large number of side events, plus a pre-summit research day, all were organized by partners and stakeholders that are too numerous to acknowledge individually. But let me say that these initiatives add hugely to the summit's richness and diversity. We want you all back. And of course, I cannot end the summit without words of admiration for the contribution of my own team. Recalling the preparation stage, basically it was not that easy this year. We had a lot of difficulties and a lot of change in our workforce internally, but we tried to overcome so many difficulties. And Mary, I really appreciate her dedication and passion, and all the other staff members as well. And I think now it's time to say goodbye, at least to those who do not go on the bicycle tour with the Lord Mayor of Leipzig. I'm sure they will go, no? But I would like to see you again. And now, the most important information. Next year, from 27th to 29th May, the summit will reconvene in Leipzig. So please take note. I invite you today to mark this date in your diaries. The theme will be Innovation for Sustainable Development. The presidency will now pass to Ireland, the Emerald Isle, and I look forward to Ireland's leadership for ITF in 2019-20. So again, please mark the 27th to 29th May 2020 in your agenda. We do want to see you again, and I wish you a well-connected and safe journey home. Stay connected. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to the Secretary General of the ITF, Yang Tae Kim. Indeed, your voice held quite up. I mean, your karaoke skills are legendary, I can tell you that. We witnessed them yesterday. So congratulations to you as well on a successful second year, ladies and gentlemen. This wraps up, this concludes ITF 2019. I'm very much sure that you have enjoyed your stay here. This was a productive stay for you, and you heard it. Mark your dates. Hope to see you back here at the same site, in the same city. For now, have a safe trip back home, and see you all back here in good health in 2020. Thank you so much.